He is now our Attorney General-elect.
The Dan York State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
In what was, as I told you it would be, an anticlimactical results in the Attorney General's race, we have elected Peter Neronha, former Attorney General's office employee, U.S. Attorney, now the Attorney General of the state of Rhode Island. And I think this will this is one of the good decisions, although you didn't have much choice, which is because the politicians went, you know what, this is a pretty good decision. So I think we're in good shape there with Peter Neronha. I'm going to forego our usual stuff. It's Friday evening. As you know, on Friday evenings, we kind of spread it out and kind of hone in on our guest on concepts that are either singular or all about what he or she is thinking, and so we shall do so. Actually, I have to tell you, Anita and I, when we put this show together, really didn't even think much about the celebratory election stuff. Peter's been on the radio program since the election, but not here, so we can show you all the pomp and circumstance. but along with really what was a election result, why don't we just get right into the issues? And one of them that appeared today or this week is kind of interesting. Well, they're all interesting, but here's the headline that talks to it. Of course, that is the current Attorney General, Peter Kilmartin. And here's Eyewitness News' description of this week's strange controversy.
More than 1,000 people charged with felony crimes were never prosecuted.
Really, it's just cases that, for the most part, we didn't have enough evidence or we had uncooperative victims for a myriad of reasons that we just could not bring to fruition, and then statute of limitations ran on them.
Attorney General Peter Kilmartin Wednesday addressing the findings that 1,300 felony cases were never tried and the statute of limitations has expired on most.
These came to light for a variety of reasons. One, we've done computer upgrades to make our internal systems better, and we're working with chiefs of police to make our communication systems better.
In a statement Wednesday, the Rhode Island Police Chiefs Association says they're disappointed to learn there has been a clear breakdown of communication on these cases, saying each case file transferred to the AG's office deserves adequate review and due process. But they say it would be irresponsible to criticize or offer blame without knowing the facts. The AG's office says the charges include larceny, drug possession, and a case of vehicular homicide, but not murder or rape.
In some cases, it's the victims that don't want to cooperate with the police. There could be a lot of reasons for not going forward with a case, and they're not nefarious reasons. They're lack of evidence. It's the ability not to get enough, as I said, to bring it beyond a reasonable doubt.
Actually, I'll give full credit to Peter Kilmartin, the Attorney General. I don't know what the mistake is here or what the breakdown is, but I will tell you, that's probably the most articulate response to a controversy that he's offered in the 8 years that he's been there. His spokesperson, by the way, I'm not ignoring you, but I'm on a wide camera. Peter Neronha, ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause. Congratulations on your election.
Thank you.
But let me just make this point. His spokesperson said in a Katie Mulvaney story in the Journal, you know, we can't charge if we don't have the investigative packages. We're not the police. And asking for this stuff, like, hey, where is this stuff, is not our job. Which is why I've said that office has more than a lot of growth to accomplish when it comes to communicating with the community and fellow law enforcement. We'll get back to that part. What was your gut check on this? This is like on your desk now. Well, sure. Maybe not. There are cases that just can't be found, remedied. It feels like a mess to the average citizen.
Well, look, there are two things, right, which is what's going on in the individual cases that have been identified to date, and then going forward, how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? And I really have to deal with both of those things, as you said. In just a few short weeks, I'll be there, and so I'll need to know, certainly the cases for which the statute of limitations has passed, there's nothing you can do there. But there are some that have probably, it sounds like, been kicking around for a while that have to be evaluated and decisions made about that if they haven't been made already. And I think, I don't want to call it the larger question, but it's the process question going forward. How do we make sure that this doesn't happen again. And I haven't spoken to the Attorney General directly about the processes in place, but I've got to make sure that since I'm inheriting the ship, that I'm comfortable with those processes.
Well, will you be having, I mean, do you have a transitional meeting or 10 with him specifically?
You know, we've spoken. You know, we were both at AG meetings last week. We had a long conversation there, and I have my transition staff and the people who are helping me, who are coming on board with me, are meeting with people over there. So we're talking. But I got to tell you, Dan, I think until you get there and see the physical part of it and see the files and drill down deep, that I won't really be comfortable with what's happened, meaning that I truly understand it, and also that I know exactly what needs to be done to fix it.
Well, you're not flying blind. I mean, you were a long-time prosecutor with the AG. You're the U.S. Attorney, for God's sake. You know how to set up the systems.
Sure.
But let me ask you about this story again in the breakdown. Notwithstanding, I think, poor choice of words by the spokesperson for the AG's office about, hey, not our job, not our job. It's my uninformed imagination tells me that we may have police officers who arrested somebody, who did the reports, filed enough for it to be sent for prosecution, and either never wondered about them anymore, or hey, put that guy up for da-da-da-da, or whatever happened to that case, Sarge? I don't know. We sent it up. So is there a lack of curiosity amongst law enforcement for wondering where their cases are? And then where is that curiosity about, from the AG's office, to say, hey, guys, I need another file, or I need another report. Right. Can you run that up?
Right. Well, look,
are those the proper questions?
Yeah, sure they are. So let's step back a little bit. And again, I don't have the details as about any of these cases. But as I think about it, as I've spoken to people in the transition, and I've sat in on some of the interviews and asked these questions myself, and without getting into detail with who I had those conversations with or what the answers were, writ small, there are a number of scenarios. One is, if you remember, felony cases are charged, many of them, by the police department. They're arraigned in district court, and then it has to come to the AG's office for screening, either through the information charging process, which means it's charged on paper, or it goes up to the grand jury.
Sent by
the police and the court. So the court lets the AG's office know that it's coming.
Okay.
There's paperwork in the system, and then
So police to court, court to AG?
So we know it's coming. They know it's coming. We, in January, know it's coming, and then the police are charged with bringing in all the reports that establish probable cause that a crime has been committed.
On a systemic basis? Well, this is the stuff you're going to establish by system.
No, this is the way it should work. That's the way it has to work.
But I mean, is it every Monday the Little Compton police bring a thing to a person in the AG's office, or is it uniform? Is it fly by the seat of your pants? Is it ebb and flow? What is it?
Well, it has to happen in 6 months, and so depending on the kind of case and what needs to be, for example, you could be arrested on take a large heroin case, right? You're arrested last night. You're arraigned in district court this morning. Well, there's a lot that has to go into that package before we get to the AG. All arresting detectives and involved detectives have to write their reports. You need toxicology results. So it takes a while to gather all that stuff. There are 6 months under the law to get that thing charged.
Gotcha.
So it's a work in progress. So what happens? So what could happen? You could have the AG could have a notice from the court, and nothing ever comes in from the police department. That's one possible scenario. Here's another one. A package comes in, your screening unit looks at it and says, hey, we're missing something. We're missing a statement from this detective. We're missing a toxicology report. Police department, we need that now. Those are two possible scenarios. The way I look at this is both sides have to be sort of in, to your point, following up mode, right? You've got to have a system in place that if we're not getting what we need in a certain period of time, we need to follow up, right? And the same ought to be true, I think, from the police department's perspective, that if they're not hearing back from the Attorney General's office, they ought to be inquiring too. So it's a team effort that if both are operating, if one happens for whatever reason to miss something, the other one backs it up and vice versa.
So my final question on this is, do we have 1,000 people out there that got jammed up and never got a notice to appear wherever and just kind of went, I don't know, I guess I'm not going to jail?
Well, that's potentially possible.
Guess I don't have to hire a lawyer.
Yeah,
Tippy toeing through Rhode Island, going, it's pretty cool.
You know, Dan, I think if you listen to the police chiefs, and I've heard some of the statements by the Attorney General, I think what both the police departments and the Attorney General are trying to get together is a list of the cases, a comprehensive list, and then analyze what happened in each one. So there's some possibilities, right? One, as the Attorney General said, if a package came in and it was complete, there were some reasons why the case couldn't be charged. A victim may not have come forward, but I don't want to put it necessarily all on victims. Could have been lots of other things. There could have been some things that weren't in the package that just weren't brought in. It could be that no package was brought in. It could be that for whatever reason a decision wasn't made.
Well, I know
lots of reasons potentially.
Yeah, and I know you're tough on crime, but I think you're fair on defendants. There's probably a lot of defendants who are just scratching their heads, going, "Geez, I wonder where my case is."
Well, yeah, and
that's not fair to them either.
Of course not. Right? No, the process needs to be tightened, and the Attorney General made in the comments that you ran with at the beginning are in the process of putting in some processes to make sure that happens. I've got to review all that and make sure that it fits with what I think needs to be done.
All right. There are some personnel changes coming. We'll review that and more when we come back with the Attorney General-elect. Stay with us. So the Attorney General-elect is making some personnel changes already. A small handful of longtime employees of the AG's office will be moving on to other things on your directive. You want to tell us why?
Yeah, look, I think if you're talking about the top of the organization, I think it's really important that I have a team around me in a perfect world that I've worked with before, and I have that opportunity here. And that's no disrespect to the people who hold those positions now, have done it for a long time, and done it well. But when I have the opportunity to bring in a Deputy Attorney General like Dee Goldstein, who I've known for 15 years in the Justice Department, a very well-educated clerk for the Second Circuit, smart, works hard, I want to take advantage of that opportunity. When I have an opportunity to bring over the existing U.S. Attorney to be my criminal chief, who I know, if I want to pivot that division or improve it in ways that I think it needs to be improved, we don't have to go through a whole lot of conversations to figure out how that's going to work. So I think I had this opportunity to do that. And as I think back on it, Dan, when I was U.S. Attorney and I was making significant decisions, whether it was in the Gordon Fox case or countless other ones, there were three people sitting in the room. It was myself and Steve Dambrick and Dee Goldstein. And that gives me a lot of comfort that when I get to the AG's office, we can hit the ground running and there's not going to be a need for a lot of interpretation. I have a lot of confidence in those two individuals, so that's why I made those changes.
Across the board, up and down the rank and file, how many employees, by the way, in the Attorney General's office?
Round numbers, 230, 237, something like that.
Changes down the line?
Oh, I think there'll be some changes, yeah. I think, you always want to make sure that that people are in the right places, that they have the ability to do the things you want them to do. I'll give you an example. I want our office out in the community more. If I can't get lawyers to come out there with me, right, I'm not going to be able to do that. So as I go through the transition process, one of the questions I'm asking lawyers are, look, I want you to be flexible enough to think about this a little differently and be willing to work with me to maybe pivot the office in a way it hasn't operated in the past. And so that's part of it. I don't expect it to be an enormous amount of turnover, probably in line with what's done before, but I want to make sure that people are capable of doing what I'm going to ask them to do. Otherwise, I think it's unfair to them and unfair to the office and ultimately the people of the state.
Well, the short answer is, the coach is allowed to bring his own team in. And it seems to me that you're pretty energized. You get kind of energized when you talk about this because bringing your own crew seems like it's like you're jacked over it.
Well, look, when we decided to do the transition, I only wanted people who were coming with me to interview the people in the office, right? They're coming in with me.
So you didn't use any outside people? I just need you to take a peek, no consultants, none of that kind of thing?
I used myself, Dee Goldstein, and Steve Dambrick. They more than me, but I sat in on some interviews, interviewed every lawyer in the office. It's complete. They did that work from round numbers, November 26th to date. They've worked really hard to do that, but the reason I wanted them to do it is they're coming in with me, and these are the people who they're going to be working with, and they're the ones who should have eyes on them. And I also think, and no disrespect to the way it's been done in the past, if you have outside people doing that, particularly outside lawyers, and that attorney in the office is then pre-trying a case with that lawyer 2 weeks or 3 weeks later, I think that sets up a very awkward situation, and I didn't want that to happen.
What will be the visible complexion difference to the average citizen of Rhode Island about the Attorney General's office?
You know, I can only say this, that we are going to be out there. I'm going to be out there personally, and we are going to be out there. We are not going to be hard to find. We're going to be in the community. We're going to be responsive. If you call the office, you're going to get a call back within 24 hours. That's at least is my charge to the folks as I speak to them. You know, we're going to do, I think, the work well.
You sure that's a promise you can't keep? 24 hours
well,
is beautiful and ambitious, but when you fall down on it, it's
I know,
glaring.
but that's the goal, and that's the goal. When I first became U.S. Attorney, when I got sworn in by Judge Lisi, I came back to the office and I did two things. I met with my management staff and told them what my expectations were for them, and then I met with the entire office. There, it's smaller, 50, 60 people. I said, look, I'm going to have your back. I'm going to stand behind you as you do your work. But you need to have mine. And the way you have mine is to return every phone call within 24 hours. Now, did we meet that goal every time? No. But that should be the goal, to be responsive. In this day and age of email and cell phones, we should be able to get back to people quickly. Nothing, I think, erodes confidence in a public agency than we haven't returned a phone call or we haven't returned a communication. Will we get it right 100% of the time? Probably not. But that ought to be our goal.
What did the Attorney General-elect learn from the field? Meaning, he did work for this election. What did he learn when we come back? Stay with us. Peter Neronha is our next Attorney General. The most election we've seen in a long time. But listen, you cleared the deck early. You made an early announcement. You know, I said this to you and to you on dozens of occasions on both platforms, television and radio, that if you announced early, the field will probably clear. I think it's just your resume stands on itself. Now, look, John, listen, you know, the what have you done for me lately will be the public's evaluation. You know?
Sure.
But there's hardly, in fact, there's nobody on or off the record in public life or anywhere else who said to me, what a lousy choice. So you go in with a pretty confident charge from the public. What did you learn from the public when you were out there running around?
Yeah, look, I learned that.
And you did run around. You didn't just sit around waiting to get elected.
Look, you know, I was not under any illusions that everybody in the state knew who I was. I mean, there are people who follow the U.S. Attorney's office, and there's a lot of people who don't. They're busy with their lives. They're raising kids. They're working hard, whatever. So I wanted to get out and meet people to let them know who I was and what I stood for, and also to hear from them. And I heard lots of things. You know, when I would talk about getting my lawyers out in the community, people love that idea. They don't. If you ask people to come to 150 South Main Street, they're not going to come down there. Right?
Parking is ridiculous.
You got to get down there. Yeah, you got to get down there. You got to get out in the community. So that was part of it. I learned substantive things like, are we doing enough in the area of wage theft? You know, and it's not just labor. It's people who aren't in organized labor whose wages are being quote unquote stolen. And that's not just a labor employer issue, because the employers are doing it the right way or being taken advantage of too. Right there on it's all about leveling the playing field. I think I think that phrase leveling the playing field, you know, comes up in a lot of ways. It comes up in the context of public corruption, for example. So yeah, I learned a lot about myself on the campaign trail. It broadened sort of my understanding of Rhode Island and its people and its issues, and I'm excited to get to work for them.
Compare for me the U.S. Attorney's office and the Attorney General's office in its level of importance, recognition, impact.
Well, they do, in a way, they do very different things. You know, the U.S. Attorney's Office, we had the ability to decline a case. If a case didn't quite fit our standards, you know, wasn't investigated tightly enough, or the dollar amounts weren't big enough, we could say, you know, we're not going to do that case. The AG's office, you know, it's you're doing everything. And so, and the volume is enormous. I mean, we were able to work on significant cases in the U.S. Attorney's Office. For some people, 1 or 2 cases at a time. You know, not so much in the drug unit, but in the public corruption cases. AG's office has fewer, you know, per case, many fewer people. Your staff is younger. But I will tell you, Dan, that as I've interviewed, and I've sat in on a lot of the interviews or met people as they're going into them, I've been incredibly impressed with the young lawyers in the office. Incredibly impressed. They're doing public service for all the right reasons. And I think that bodes well for the future of the organization.
Interaction with the state police, I've always said the last police are the last bus of integrity here in this state, and I mean it. It's been a tough couple of years when it comes to leadership and communication, in my judgment. You share that concern?
Well, look, I haven't been in the game now for almost 2 years. So as Colonel Asumpico was coming on, I was just more or less going out the door. But I know this. I've always, in the 20 years I spent doing this work, had a strong relationship with every colonel I interacted with, all of them. And they're all a little different. And I'm confident that Colonel Asumpico and I will build a strong relationship. It's already good. It just wasn't very long in terms of time. But most importantly, it's important to make sure that the offices, when it's taking on its most significant cases, has a team of good state police detectives that can work with the office, the Attorney General's office, hand in hand to build strong cases.
Well, people need to remember, as the FBI is to the U.S. Attorney, the state police, and the local law enforcement is to the AG's office. I mean, we've had a little tension convention between the AG's office and the state police publicly in the last year and a half. Not good.
Well, look, one of the advantages we had in the federal system, we were all in the Department of Justice. So, whatever issues we had internally, and we had them, we had to work them out internally because we're all reporting to the Attorney General in Washington, right? In
this case, state police report to the attorney, report to the governor.
Right.
Yet are your cops.
So look, I think part of it is building trust. I think it's taking advantage of your diplomatic skills if you have them, and I think that I do. And look, I've been doing this for a long time. I know most of the people out there in leadership. I'm confident that relationship is going to be very, very strong.
All right. What's the thing you're most excited about? Well, we know that you're like Mr. Public Corruption, man, and I kid you with that, but thank God for it. Your nose sniffs that out pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah,
does that get you up in the morning?
Well, I'm not excited about it because when there are those cases,
it's bad
for us, right? So, but I know that's a mission the office has to do and has to do well. That's why, as we think about the unit in the office that will do those cases, I said to Steve and Adi as we're building that team, it's got to be the best and the brightest, have got to be in that unit, and they've got to have enough bandwidth to be able to do those cases well.
Best, brightest, and cleanest.
Oh, of course. Yeah,
I mean, clean comes along, you'd hope, with the AG's role, but unattached, got to be careful. There's a bunch of intimacy in this very small place that you got to be wary of.
Well,
right?
look, my eyes are going to be on those cases. Of course, Steve, my criminal chief, eyes will be on that. So will the deputy. I only know how to do this job one way, and I wouldn't do it if I couldn't do it the way I did it when I was U.S. Attorney, which is take every case on its merits, do the right thing, be independent.
Merry Christmas.
You too.
Happy New Year.
You too.
Get some rest.
I'm going to do my best.
It's going to be heavy lifting. Appreciate it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Final word when we come back. So it is going to be a fascinating transition between this Attorney General's office that we're experiencing right now and the next Attorney General's office. One of the things that has been a real Achilles heel for this Attorney General, Peter Kilmartin, is just I think a lack of overall respect for the need to communicate well and kind of a disappearance act. The one thing I have to tell you that I'm kicking myself is because our guest just left the studio that I didn't follow up on and will take up as a little bit of a thing for 2019, parking. I mentioned it. Access the Attorney General's office, I'd rather put a pin in my pupil than try to park downtown. Same thing for our State House, by the way. The People's House is hardly accessible. So we're going to review that concept for all public buildings in 2019 because every once in a while, you'd like to press the flesh and look somebody in the eye when you're asking them to do the job for you, right? All right. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week, and thanks for tuning in. Good night.